Bajashig, welcome to InDigital Insights. Monique Manatch, Indigenous Kitikanek, Anishinaabeg, and Ojibwa. My name is Monique Manatch, and I'm a member of the Algonquins of Barrier Lake. And I have been looking forward to this interview for a very long time. When I first found out we were doing this show, one of the first names that popped into my head was Skawennati. So today we get to talk to Skawennati. Skawennati is a multidisciplinary artist, media-based mainly, from Ganawagi and lives in Montreal. So I'm just going to ask if you could tell us about your work, your brilliant work.
Yawa, Sego, Sego, Guego. Hi, everyone. Well, in a nutshell, my work is about envisioning Indigenous people in the future. And I think I try to do that with different mediums. One of them is very futuristic, in my opinion, and that is machinima, which is the term used for making movies within a video game. And so that's one of the things that I do, but I also will use whatever materials I think are suitable for the message of the moment.
And you've recently had a show at the National Art Gallery.
Yes, I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's called Welcome to the Dreamhouse. And the reason we named it that, the curator, Wasendio Cross, and I came to the name together, is I wanted to think about dreaming as an activity that we do when we're thinking about the future. And I also think that when we say dream house, it's something that we imagine ourselves in. It's a place that we think is attainable, at least, mostly attainable. And also we knew by that point too which works were going to be in there and how we were going to set it up, and we knew that it would actually have the feeling of a kind of a house. So, and we wanted it to feel welcoming. So welcome to the dream house. Well, it sounds really simple and maybe obvious. It took us a long time to get to that title, but I'm really happy with it. I hope it has the meaning that it's intended.
And when you go into the dream house, right away there's a piece on the left-hand side. Can you tell me about that one?
Mm-hmm. That piece is called, the very first piece when you walk in is called Greetings from Skyworld. And it's actually a sequel to an earlier work of mine called She Falls for Ages. She Falls for Ages is a sci-fi retelling of the Haudenosaunee creation story. In it, just like most versions of the creation story, we have the main character, Sky Woman, who chooses to so instead of, like many versions we hear, she falls through the hole or she's pushed by her husband, but in this version she jumps. She chooses to jump. Why is she choosing to jump? Because her planet, her world, is heading towards doom. It's not really explained in the movie, but basically there's that world is going to end, and so she, pregnant, decides to go, exploring, basically, to find another place for her and her baby, and therefore her people, to continue and to survive. With Greetings from Skyworld, I imagine that actually the planet was saved, and all the people there set up a system in order to send broadcasts out into the universe so that she could get the message and we could get the message that they're okay and that they love us. And so that's what you see when you first walk in, is this greeting from the sky people who are our ancestors.
That's beautiful.
There's another little Easter egg, I guess you could say. I'm not really sure the right word to use, but in She Falls for Ages, it starts off on the planet, on Skyworld, and it's a very technologically advanced place, all right? And it's really futuristic looking, I feel, and that's how I tried to make it look. And so, I think when people are watching it, they think that this is all happening in the future. And then slowly, the more you know of the creation story, you start to see these things happening and you're like, oh my God, actually, this is happening in the far past. And so a time loop kind of happens in a way, because the end of the movie, you realize you're at the beginning of our world. And so in the show, I thought it was fun that Greetings from Skyworld starts the show, and then She Falls for Ages ends it.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It was, thanks. Well,
That's lovely. I love that, and the imagery is so vibrant. It's just so it's not only just colorful, but to see our own people as well in this medium. I mean, it not only blasts any stereotype right out of the water. It brings to life our stories, our creation. Um, so the next one after that, there's three sisters.
right.
Can you tell us about that one?
Greetings from Skyworld is happening in the entryway of the whole show. So I like to think of it as a kind of a maybe a portal or an airlock, and then so you're like kind of getting acclimatized to this machinima thing, whatever that is. You're seeing these characters that look a certain way, and then you walk in and you see one of my most recent pieces, and it's called They Sustain Us. And They Sustain Us has two components. The first is another machinima. It's a 10-minute long music video on 3 channels, on 3 screens. And it tells the story of how the 3 sisters became superheroes. So for those of you who don't already know, the 3 sisters are our beloved personifications of the staple crops, corn, beans, and squash. There's a lot of stories about them, especially about how they are very kind to one another, they can't live without each other, and how they sustain the people. And so I was thinking a lot about them, and I was thinking how fantastically cool they were, and how they've been through so much. And I started to think about how I would depict them, and finally I was like, wow, could it be that no one has ever depicted them as superheroes? Because they're such superheroes. They're kind of like goddesses, they're like warriors, and today's version of that is the superhero. So I started to tell that story, but I actually started to tell it in my usual way, which is writing a story, writing a script, doing a storyboard. Well, when I got to the storyboard part, I found that I just had these characters standing there talking like really boring. Like they were just telling their story, and there wasn't that much action. And so I finally, I was like, this is going to be really boring. What can I do to fix this? And I was sort of fretting for like several days. And then, because of course there's a deadline bearing down on me. And so finally one morning I woke up and I was like, okay, Skawennati, what would you like to make? What would be fun? And I'm like, well, Skawennati, I've always wanted to make a music video, a machinima music video. And I also would really like to do a fashion show. And so I took all the words I had written, and I somehow managed to make them rhyme and put them to a beat. And I contacted an amazing musician that I have worked with in the past, Elisa Harkins, plus my trusty sound designer, multi-talented man, Sean Mullen. And together, the 3 of us made this crazy long song, hip hop song. And so that was great. And like through the song, through the whole story, the 3 sisters, they go through these major challenges. And so and each of those happens in an era. And so I made a costume for each of those eras. And it wasn't supposed to be a historically accurate costume. It's supposed to make you think about, the era of pre-contact, the era of colonization, the era of genetic modification, and 5 minutes in the future. So the other thing you see in that beautiful room are mannequins wearing the costumes that I made with some help physically. What did you think of that piece?
I loved it. And I realized that I loved how you had the materials, surrounding the mannequins, and that's not the first time that you've created uh, fashion for your machinima. There was another time when you were actually in a fashion show, weren't you, with your work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The Calico and Camouflage Project. I love to tell this story, so if you'll permit me. I was invited to Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto to give a talk. And I was like, why are you I mean, I'm thrilled, but why are you inviting me? And they're like, you have been making costumes for avatars for years. And I'm like, yes, I have. I feel so seen. I was so happy. So I go and I give my talk, but I'm also invited. I'm able to see all the fashion shows, and I just love them. And one of the things I loved about them, besides the fashion, were the models. So they were all colors, all sizes, all ages, and they were all smiling. They were all smiling. And I just was like, I want to be a part of this. Like this is my idea of a fashion show. Like I thought it was going to be, usually I haven't even been to a fashion show in person, I don't think, before. Anyway, maybe I have, but in my mind they're all like angry thin white women walking, down the runway. And I still like them, of course, but this was just so exciting and different and like welcoming. So I wanted to be part of it. But of course, the way I think, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to make a machinima fashion show because that's what I do. And so I designed this whole collection. And it was a very simple idea. I felt like I had had the idea for a long time. The idea is simply to switch so switch our some of our clothing, mix and match some of our kind of regalia or our traditional, if you will, clothing. And by traditional, I mean, so there's regalia, which is like represented in this collection by the ribbon shirt. And then there is army fatigues, like army clothing. Because, for me, the way, I was 20 when I was about 20 in 1990. I'm very bad at math. So, during the Mohawk crisis, and that's when I noticed everyone starting to wear camouflage. And so I started to think about, what would it mean? Well, I thinking about, okay, the future, and what, how will our regalia change? What are some of the things that we would adopt, and what are some of the things that we might let go? And that idea just made me think about switching up and making ribbon shirts with camouflage fabric, patterned fabric, and army pants with calico. And I should mention here that I'd definitely seen a few other artists play with camouflage. Like there was the fashion designer from Kahnawake, Tammy Bova. She made this rockabilly dress out of camouflage, like sometime in probably 1992 or 3, maybe I saw it. I thought that was really cool. Ellen Gabriel from Gonasadage, she did a fashion show of all camouflage. Like she asked people to come. My son went, everyone wearing their camouflage outfits. So that was definitely in my mind. But this was a bit different, I think, because I did this slight, very simple change. And so yes, so I made these for my avatars, and same story almost. I started to, I filmed my avatars walking around on a catwalk with these clothes on, and it was terribly boring, like really, really boring. And so I was sort of like wondering what to do, I guess. And then it seems like if this was a movie, the next thing that would happen was like I saw a call for proposals from Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto. And, it was, looking for people to show their clothes on the runway. And I thought, These are just shirts and pants. Like, if you look at She Falls for Ages, it's like this gravity defying costume. Like, that's pretty hard to make, although we did make it. But these were just shirts and pants. So I thought, I think I can make this. I'm going to apply. And I got in. And yeah, and I got in, and then COVID happened. So I didn't actually have a fashion show there, though they did a beautiful fashion movie. I think that's what they called it. It was like a movie of all the of models wearing the outfits, which is really great. But eventually, I did get to go to the Swaya fashion show with Calico and Camouflage and had it on real models and got beautiful photographs taken by Tira Howard, who I asked to take the photos of the They Sustain Us collection, which is actually called Three Sisters, Four Moments.
That's incredible. Where was that fashion show?
Santa Fe.
Santa Fe. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the way there's so much juxtaposition of the Haudenosaunee or the Hongwe clothing, and yet you've modernized it and made it almost futuristic. And what you've done with the wampum belts as well, like the 2-row wampum, and then you've got a couple of other wampums. I'm just looking at this one, Intergalactic Empowerment Wampum Belt. I love it. So you've got different figures representing human beings, but also other beings.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about?
Well, I was thinking about, so in The Peacemaker Returns, that's a sci-fi retelling of the Haudenosaunee Confederation story. I definitely showed a lot of wampum belts because that's one of the ways that our people marked occasions and remember them too.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a fair amount of research on wampum belts, and so yeah, I wanted to show that wampum belts would be something that we would continue to make in the future. And so I did this almost, I guess you could say, a timeline of wampum belts, starting with the Confederacy belt, also known as the Hiawatha wampum. So that shows the original 5 nations of the Confederacy. And then the next one is the 2-row wampum. But then the next one is called the Empowerment Wampum Belt. So this is one I imagine being made like right around now. And it mirrors a well-known belt called the Friendship Belt, in which there are figures holding hands. So all I did was I made the figures hold their hands up, so it's like very, very similar, but the hands are just in the air. And then I thought, and I imagined, okay, so first there were 5 nations that lived really near each other that found peace, well, worked towards peace. And then in the movie, next there's 5 continents that come together in peace, the 5 continents on Earth. And then in the very far future, there are 5 different alien peoples that come together in peace. And so those, so again, I'm thinking, oh, we keep innovating on what we've known before. So now the hands are in the air, but we have new shapes. We have the shapes of these alien beings, and all the alien beings in the intergalactic empowerment wampum belt are from pop culture. Like, so, well, one is still a human being, Ungwe Humwe, and one is a sky person. In each of I ended up making that belt a few times because I really enjoyed making it and imagining the little, how you might represent these aliens. And to be honest with you, I can't remember exactly which aliens are in that one, but I definitely know there's the Na'vi from the famous movie Avatar. Oh yeah, and there's the Overlord from the sci-fi novel by Arthur C. Clarke, Childhood's End.
Oh yeah.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and probably LGM, Little Green Man, is in there.
Yep, there's a little green man. Yep. I love that. So taking the science fiction pop culture, but making it. See, that's what I love about that juxtaposition. That you're taking what is known, but you're I want to say extending it. You're bringing it into the unknown.
Yeah.
Or the future.
Well, just trying to imagine what we can be in the future, and not telling people what they have to be, but
Yeah.
just like holding up some ideas of what it could be. Like, ooh, what do you think of this? Like, And do we want to be that? Would we like to use wampum belts to imagine, to mark our meetings with alien beings? I think that would be good.
I think that, yeah, absolutely. Did you find that there was any limitations with the tech when you were creating these avatars?
Yes, all the limitations. People are always like, oh, with virtual reality or with technology, you can do anything. It's limitless. It is not limitless in like any way. There's things that are way easier. For example, making a person fly with a jetpack is very easy in Second Life because flying is built in to the so that's the video game I use. It's called
Yeah.
Second Life, and your avatar can fly. So I just had to design a jetpack and have somebody make it, and figure out how to put it on. Well, that wasn't too hard, but put it on the avatar, and then it looks like he's flying with a jetpack. But there's, I mean, so many impossible, like really difficult things. Like the avatars don't just move around the way you do, the way a human does. You need to tell it every single thing for it to do, and like also, there's not a lot of in between states. Like for example, a helmet is on or it is off. It's like like you can't your avatar does not take its hands and take off the helmet. This was like a scene that I wanted to do in my first ever machinima, and I was like, I quickly realized like, no, that's not how it works. You'd have to create an animation of your avatar's hands doing that, put the helmet in its hands, and hope for the best. you know oh my
Okay,
god,
the head
plus
is up beside the head.
what's that? Yeah. Plus, so many times we log in and, the server's down, or for some reason, not explained, no eyeballs show up, like all kinds of idiosyncrasies. We've, so many limitations. Just memory is a limitation. Just bandwidth is a limitation. So there are many limitations. Yeah. But, I think it was interesting to work around them. I truly believed that, well, first of all, I thought more people would be making machinima, and that we would develop together as a group, as a movement, a machinima graphic language, like, because in film, we tell people things in a certain way with the actors' movements and the edits, and we can't make the same kind of edits in a machinima, or we can't do the same movements, is more like it. We can do all the same edits, but there isn't always the material there. Like I said, like having somebody sit down, they're in the chair or they're standing. They're not doing the action of sitting down.
Wow,
One time I wanted that so much that we created an animation for the avatar just so it could look like she was sitting down.
that's wild. Like that is surprising. You'd think over the, I mean, it's been around for a while, so you'd think those advancements would have, you know, maybe you're gonna be the trailblazer that brings those advancements
I
to
don't
the.
think so. That's not my area of interest. I'm just going to tell the stories that I want to tell. Yeah.
There was another one which I found really interesting, of the woman in the bathtub. There was a number of video. There was a video, and it went through a number of different storylines. And I'm wondering if you could tell us about that one.
So I think you're talking about Dollhouse Longhouse.
I think so. Yeah, that rings a bell.
That has a story too. So it started like several years ago. I was asked by the Guild of Future Architects to write a story. It's a longer story than that, but I'll just say I was asked to write a story about that would take place in the year, I think it was 2080. That's my favorite thing, is to imagine a future. And so I imagined a future in which people live much longer lifespans, not too much longer, but let's say to be about 200. And so the main character, she's about 150 years old or so. And, she lives in a longhouse, but it's not a longhouse that's made out of tree trunks and bark. It is a very modern or very contemporary futuristic longhouse with, a microwave and all kinds of modern conveniences. But the main thing is that everyone lives together, like it's an intergenerational household, and so it's kind of modeled on the the floor plan of an ancient traditional longhouse. With like a kind of area down the middle that everyone uses, and then bedrooms on the sides. And in the story, also she talks about her life and how this system works so well, and she talks about how she still feels she has a lot to offer a young person, and they pair up old people with very young people as apprentices. Kids don't have to go to school, they can learn different things, and everyone's first language is once again Ganyangeha. And so I wrote this story, and then I don't remember how the idea came about of like how fun it would be to do a tiny little machinima, like a very short one is what I mean by tiny, and to show this longhouse. Oh yeah, well, I built the longhouse in Second Life. That was the first thing that happened. And then I was like, oh, it really needs the people in there. And then it felt like a dollhouse. And I was like, oh man, why don't all our dollhouses, they're always like pointy houses. Wouldn't it be cool if we had a longhouse for a dollhouse? And so then I thought how fun it could be to get all these bits together. So I have the longhouse, I've got the avatars inside. They all have characters from the story. They all have personalities and backstories.
Okay.
And I could have them each in a room that's kind of like a dollhouse, and I could project it onto a structure that looks like a dollhouse, but it would be like this magical dollhouse because like the little dolls are moving. And so there's all these characters, and yes, but one character that was not in the story is my avatar, my own avatar. Her name is XOX, and she's just in the tub singing to herself, and that's what you hear. And the song is to the tune of, I think, Frère Jacques, but it's singing like grandma, grandpa, mother, father, sister, brother. It's singing all the members of the family, and just like sing the words. It's this wonderful woman who has been like writing these songs like to help teach the Mohawk language. So she's putting a lot of these songs that are old nursery rhyme type songs into the language, and helps you remember how to sing it and say it.
That's funny because growing up, the Kini Bana for us, like we were taught Frere Jacques, but in Algonquin,
It's
Kini
good.
Bana, Nishi Mesh, like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it was that's the same song. Like, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a very catchy tune.
Yeah, it is. And it really, like, I remember that. Kini Bana is, are you sleeping? And it's
Now
like,
yeah.
it's one of the only, like little piece of the language that I actually have
Yeah.
because it was taught to me in song.
Yeah.
Which I think, yeah, that's a fantastic. And I think that's the way that you use the technology and the machinima um, is very aligned with the way we taught our kids, with that ancestral knowledge transference. We didn't sit them down and read, like make them read, and what you were saying about Longhouse, Dreamhouse, that or Dollhouse, that they didn't have to go to school; they were able to learn, in our own way. Um, that it not I don't want to say preserves, it revitalizes our culture in a way that the younger generations are very much engaged.
It seems that way. Yeah. I think
Absolutely.
I think there. I'm not saying that school is bad. I just know that it didn't work for some kids. It didn't really work for some of my kids. You know,
Mine either.
and they're very smart children, very smart humans. But so it's just not for everyone. It worked for me though. I was good at school. I loved school, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to give up school. But some kids, could learn in another way.
There's another way of learning. Learning styles was something that I found came across when I was working at F&T, First Nations Technical Institute, and it was about the physical learner or the relational learner,
Mm-hmm.
or the intuitive learner.
Mm-hmm.
The mental learner is the only learner who actually does well in the classroom, like mainstream classroom setting, and hardly anyone, not just Indigenous, but anyone, it turns out to be a mental learner. That's something I've wanted to do with education, is try to update it to bring in more ways to address the needs of all the children and not
Mm-hmm.
of the institution.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it was set up just for the convenience of the institution to get as many through as they could, you know. But this, I mean, it's colorful. It's, I love how you took the camouflage and you made different colors out of it. You didn't just go with the green or the gray or, it's pink and it's,
Mm-hmm. Well, other people have done that. I mean, I can't take credit for that.
I've never really seen it. It's great. It's great. Do you think you'll stick on the hair colors too? The green, the purple, the blonde, like, you know, um, I saw one piece I saw that they put going into where your exhibit is, dancing with myself.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about? I love that. That's fantastic.
Thank you. I love that piece too. Actually, it took a long time to get to that piece. I was making Time Traveler TM. That's the first machinima that I did, and it ended up being like nine. I it was 9 episodes. I thought it would be 10 episodes, but I also thought it would take me 2 years or 1 or 2 years to do all the episodes, and it took 7. So during this time, I'm filming these avatars. I'm creating avatars, customizing them, making them look like the characters in the story of Time Traveler TM. But all this time, I have my avatar. I need to have my avatar in order to film, to film all the other avatars. And over time, I'm like dressing my own avatar. I'm like, I'm traipsing through Second Life, learning about it, and going to stores and meeting people who give me wings and all kinds of fun things. And so I'm like, and I'm learning. I'm like having a relationship with my avatar, right? Like I don't exactly still know what that relationship is, but like I'm like, oh, she needs to look a certain way because she represents me. In one of the episodes, episode 3, we make a ribbon shirt for one of the characters, and I'm like, I want my avatar to have a ribbon shirt. And so we made one. It's not the one that you see on her now. It was a different one. And it was like not that great. It was okay. But it was like, it was Second Life was older. It wasn't as developed. You couldn't make as nice things as you can now. And we didn't have the skills to make the nicest possible thing at the time, me and the ad tech team that work with me. So, but I get this ribbon shirt, and then I'm like, I don't have a ribbon shirt. I need a ribbon shirt. So I make myself a ribbon shirt, but I make it like my avatar. So it's a bit futuristic, right? It's got some black sparkly material. It's got a different neckline than the traditional ribbon shirt. I'm just trying things out. And then someone calls me up. I'm sorry, I don't remember who, but they say to me, and this is like, I guess people didn't all have email addresses. I don't remember why it was an email. Anyway, we talked on the phone, and she says, I'm organizing this performance festival, and I'd like to invite you. And I'm like, well, I don't do performance. And they're like, oh, but yes, you do. And they, proceed to explain why my art fits into the performance area. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, as a matter of fact, I've been thinking about dressing as my avatar lately. Like, would that be a good idea? And she's like, yes, please dress as your avatar for this talk that you're going to give us. So I went out and bought like a tutu, and I try anyway. And I tried to dress as my avatar for this talk, and it was kind of a failure. Like I have these fun pictures I can show you if you want. But like, it was cute. It was cute, but it wasn't like a good art piece. So time passes, and the next thing that happens is this young woman, Magali Coulombe, she comes into Abtech to be a research assistant, and she comes in with a degree in fashion design. And I was like, ooh, I have a project if you want to work on it. And I told her that, I told her this story. I told her how, like, it wasn't like that great, like dressing as my avatar. It didn't like have any oomph. And she, she's like, well, yeah, your avatar's shirt is not really a costume. It's just a shirt. So she designed a beautiful shirt for my avatar, and then one for me as well. And so we made the shirts. We had to figure out how to model it in Second Life, and that took a while. And then I made the shirt with some help from Karen Lamkov, a friend of a friend. And Karen also made me a much better tutu. And then I went out and paid money for the boots. I paid money for a makeup artist. I paid money for a hairstylist, and I paid money for a really good fashion photographer. Money can really, really up your game. And they took, this team created, with this team, I was dressed up like amazingly. I looked fabulous. A fantastic photograph was taken, and it was still photoshopped in a beautiful way. And then we posed my avatar to be the same, and we took that picture.
Okay.
And the work is about, like, what is the relationship between us? A lot of times I think people make their avatars to look like them, and that's totally cool. People think that we want to be avatars, or that's the feedback I've gotten. A lot of people are like, "Oh, wouldn't you rather be an avatar? Wouldn't you love to live in cyberspace?" And I'm like, no. I mean, yes, I love that, nothing ever sags. She never has a zit. She never has cramps. She's always the same. She doesn't get hurt. That's wonderful. I said, but she can't taste. She can't fuck. Well, she can, but does she enjoy it? Like, you know, like, I think, and again, in popular culture and in literature, we see these, human-like beings that just wish they were human, like Pinocchio or Mr. Data, And so I wanted to think about both of us wanting to be a little bit more like the other one.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love the hair, like the
Yeah.
combs. How did you do that? That would be
Well, I
hard.
mean, there's a whole other hair story, which is like, the hair. My favorite hair of XOX's is the ponytails that glow. That's what
Yeah.
she's doing in the bathtub. So, when I met the hairdresser, of course, she didn't just show up the day of the shoot. We had to have some meetings. And, first I showed her what I wanted. The next meeting, she had collected all these amazing items that could be used to make those basically she got these mesh tubes, fake dreads, and glow sticks. And I even also 3D printed these tiny little antennae, which are in part of her hairstyle. And and then we did like a practice run of the hairstyle. And she's pulling my hair and she's putting bobby pins in it, and always these really cool looking sort of dread locks, glowing locks. They kept just drooping down. And she's like, I don't think you can do this hairstyle. And I'm like, yes, I can take it. I can take it. She's like, you can't. You've never done a photo shoot. She's like, it's going to be hours long. It's going to keep falling. It's going to take longer, and you still will probably not get what you want. She said, you need to go and find another hairstyle that your avatar. Find some avatar hairstyles and show them to me, and I'll tell you what we can do. So I found a few more hairstyles, including the cones. And she said, yes, we can do that. And she had some, she's got all kinds of, I don't even know what they're called, hair accessories. Like, she had these like donuts, and she put them on my head, and I had still long hair. And so she wrapped my hair around these sort of mesh hair like donuts. Yeah. And that was awesome. It was awesome. She was super right.
Absolutely. Oh, it's gorgeous though. The whole thing is just, and I love those boots. Were you wearing those boots? Because I remember your boots from the opening.
Different
No,
boots.
those are gorgeous.
Another cool pair of boots. Money changes everything. Actually, the ones I wore at the opening were pretty cheap. They were like, they were a really good price. I can't remember how much, but under $100.
Wow, wow. You'll have to show me where you shop.
Yes, I can try and do that.
And I like the one with all the selfie with all the characters. That's amazing. It shows them not just as singular avatars, but as a group, as
Mm-hmm.
like a cast.
Hmm.
So,
Well, yeah, so, yeah, that one's from Words Before All Else. So that's, that's the part where, um, so in that, Words Before All Else is the Ohanda Garda Wetekwa. It's the Haudenosaunee giving of thanks, right, to everything in the universe. And in the way that I was taught it, the first thing you thank is the people. And so in Words Before All Else, I'm imagining what does it mean for an avatar to give thanks in cyberspace. So she still can give thanks to the people because there are other avatars around.
oh my God, that's I love that. I love how it's translating to the virtual space. I've seen, I've talked to a lot of people about how to translate that culture but nothing as, I want to say, intricate
Mm.
as this, and how this gets translated into the virtual space, how the culture, you know.
One of the things that is happening in this show that's sort of new is this kind of clarity about making things that were about taking things that were virtual and translating them or bringing them into the physical world. So that's something it turns out I was doing for quite a while, but I didn't. I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say I didn't notice because, of course, I was clearly working on it. But when I took a step back and looked at all my work over the last 25 years, I saw how I was doing that, like almost I was doing it more than I realized, and that it gave me this feeling of like making the future happen sooner, like actually making the future come to life. And so with They Sustain Us, that was like a clear thing that I wanted to do very right away from the beginning is I'm going to make this machinima and I'm going to make these physical objects that go with the machinima so that it feels like this is happening really soon, like in 5 minutes.
And I love how you represent all body types.
Well, thanks. That was like, so that's another limitation of Second Life. It was like very, very hard to show different body types. And for years, I would give a talk, and almost every time someone would say, why are all the bodies so sexy? Eventually, Second Life users and creators did make different body types. So I was able to use them. And then we even got mannequins with different body types, which is really fun.
That's amazing. Yeah, because you never see that. Maybe occasionally at Laura's, but that's about it. Well, it's such beautiful work. What do you have planned next?
Right now, I'm very excited about quilting. So the last thing you see in the show is a quilt that I made called Celestial Tree with Blossoms That Light the World. I did a few things that were experimental to me. I made it circular. I made it out of silk du peony, which I actually had made quilts out of silk du peony before, this very beautiful, luxurious fabric, but not out of a circle and not with metallic thread. While I think the quilt is really beautiful, the metallic thread is not doing what I hoped it would do. It provides some, like, I had colored metallic thread, and you don't see the color. So I'd like to make a few more little quilts, maybe just the small ones, and try some things with the colored metallic thread to make it more colorful. So yeah, that's one thing. And then I also want to tell a few more stories about the three sisters. So now we know how they became superheroes, but what are some of the challenges they're facing as superheroes? Who are some of the bad guys? I've had some suggestions already. Yes, the three white sisters, sugar, salt, and flour.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that wasn't my idea, but they're like, go for it. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but I think I'm going to like to write out a couple of stories and see where that goes.
Well, so I mean, storytelling is such a huge part of your work,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems to come from your own culture. I know every community has their own stories. I know there are stories in Rapid Lake that there aren't in Kittigawn-Zibi.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're very personal to you and your community.
Well, I like to think that it sort of goes in like concentric circles. Like there's stories that are my own, and then that are my family stories. Like so many lines in Time Traveler TM are things that my family said over the years. And then there's Kahnawake, and then there's, the Mohawk Nation, because there's other communities, there's other Mohawk people that help me a lot with what I do. And then there's the Haudenosaunee, then there's the Montreal. I mean, this may be not concentric, but more like an overlapping Venn diagram. There's like the native artists that I've worked with over all these years, like who have helped me to develop as an artist and have helped me to articulate my thoughts and our thoughts together. So yeah, it's and then there's the Second Life users, and the technophiles. They're another circle that I think I'm speaking to when I make machinima.
So if we go to Second Life, can we find your work and find the machinima?
So you can't find the machinima because that's a movie, but you can watch them. Almost all of them are on my website, skawennati.com. But you can find some of the sets that so we build the sets that we shoot the movies in, and then like some of them are so pretty we don't want to take them down, so we put them on Abtec Island. And Abtec Island is open 24/7 for people to visit. And if if you want to do that, you go to Second Life, you get yourself an account. An account makes you have your own avatar, and then once you get into, then you download Second Life, you go into Second Life and you search for Abtec Island, and I think we're it. I think that there's nothing else called Abtec Island. It's ABTEC, stands for Aboriginal Territories in Cyberspace. Abtec Island, yeah, and you can hang out. There's a lot of stuff to see there. There's a beautiful gallery, Abtec Gallery, that has a show by Morgan Zoe right now. And there is also an arcade that shows some of the video games that we have another project. Abtec does another project called Skins, and we give workshops in digital media to Indigenous youth. So some of the video games that they've made in those workshops are in that arcade.
And when you're building your avatar, can you put on some of that fashion that you've created?
Not easily. Well, not without contacting me. But if you wanted to contact me, if someone writes to, I think it's info@abtec.org, you will be answered, and we can meet you in Second Life. We can give you the clothes. Yeah. You can like wear calico and camouflage if you like. Yeah. We made gift boxes of calico and camouflage for one of our, yeah, we did a big, yeah, there's so many things to talk about. So many little things we tried and events and experiments. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk to me today.
It's a pleasure, Monique. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah.
We just never have enough time.
All right.
Too much to say.
Hopefully we can do this again, or maybe in person.
Absolutely.
That'd be wonderful. Well, Kachimi Gwich, thank you.
Nyawagoa. Wanagiwahi.
Kawabaman.